Welcome to the American Maple Museum for our 42nd annual Hall of Fame induction ceremony to the International Maple Hall of Fame. It all began back in 1977. If you, I don't know if you have a program or not, I don't want to mispronounce anybody's names. Professor Fred Lynch from Ithaca was our first inductee back in May 28, 1977. And obviously in the program you see that there's 90 or 91 fabulous inductees that have been inducted in the Maple Hall of Fame. So we thank everyone for that. Obviously the room upstairs, you can see all the pictures and their plaques up there. Before we really get started here, I'm going to invite Mr. Paul Mass up. He's going to do our invocation this morning. He probably doesn't need a microphone.
Nope. So we pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day given to us, Lord. I thank you for these men who have given of their time and energy and life to the maple industry, Lord. Lord, I thank you for the many people who are on the boards that make this all happen. Lord, I thank you for this opportunity to live in a country, Lord, where we can do these kind of things, Lord. I thank you for the many people who give their time and their energy to make a product, Lord, that we can all be proud of. Lord, I thank you for all the blessings that we have here. In your precious name, amen.
Thank you, Mr. Mass. Okay, so we'll start off with, I need to kind of give you some directions here, just in case there's a fire that breaks out in the museum. You have two exits off to my left. You go out those doors, you can go to the right, go to the left, or you can go straight. Okay, you just run really fast. Okay? I'll be the captain, I'll stay back. Okay, make sure everybody's out. Today we're recognizing Bruce Gilliam and Eric Rando for their years of service into the Hall of Fame. So first off, a round of applause for those two, please. And as we get going, then I'll call up Mr. Richard Norman to help me out up here. For some reason, my phone's going off right now. So, because I'm a school teacher, I get to check this, because all my kids do anyways. So I make sure it was my son who already called me earlier. I want to start off today, in the program there's a maple myth. I'm going to butcher this name, I know I am. There's pronunciation in it, I'm still going to get it wrong. Nunu Buzu, I'm sure I butchered that. The spirit serving as a trickster hero is in many traditional non-scroll origin stories. After his grandmother, Lycophus, tapped the maple tree to collect sap, Nunu Buzu was impressed by the water's sweetness. He felt that humans would get lazy if all they had to do was poke the tree to collect this nectar. So he grabbed a bucket of water, climbed the tree, and poured the water into the center of the tree. This diluted the ambrosial sap to a watery mixture, suspending just 1 or 2% sugar, thus requiring people to labor over great amounts of this liquid to create a concentrated and preserved maple syrup or sugar product. I bring that up, first of all, if you're a maple producer, you know how much time goes into this as far as producing syrup. The second reason I bring it up because I found it funny that I was thinking back a couple of years ago at our sugar house, we had some nice big old maple trees, probably 150, 200 years old. And of course, when they get that big, they're no longer solid in the middle. And it happened to be one of those dry afternoons that were boiling, and we fired up, and of course sparks come out, we're a wood-fired evaporator, and some of those embers actually got inside the tree. So instead of having the watery mixture come out of the tree, we had flames shooting out the hollow tree, about 30 feet up in the air. Of course, I was still in school teaching at that time, but my brothers and my father quickly gathered some, I don't know if it was sap or water, whatever they had on hand, climbed the ladder, just like the story says, but instead of pouring the water down to collect the sap, they were pouring the water down to put the fire out. Needless to say, the tree came down the next day. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting fact. I did this. Going back to some of the things in the program, I'd like to recognize Vernon Leindecker, who's been a long-standing board member with us for many years. This year, actually a couple weeks ago, he decided to resign his position as a board director, but he has been put on to the emeritus status, where he will be here helping us out during certain times of the year. And if you ever met Vernon before, he's a very quiet individual, but very knowledgeable and very thoughtful. And just like to give a round of applause for him, even though he's not here today. As far as some other people, I know I'm going to miss some people here, but we have Christine Cohen up here front. She's our executive director here at the museum. Tim Barney's in the back. He was staying up to him with the green shirt on. He's the board of directors and helped out with breakfast. Jane Yancey out the back left by the door where he was hiding out. She's our secretary, or I'm sorry, our treasurer here at the museum. I don't see anybody inside, so they're all in the kitchen mostly. But Jake Mosier, Dale Mosier, let's see, Pat Farney, I know I'm going to miss some, Eleanor Allen, Warren Allen, Kevin Artisan, who am I missing, Jane?
Jill Bush.
Jill Bush, yep, and there's, I know, Jackie Young, Kathy Yancey. So we have a board member strong of, I think it's 22 at this point, or close to it. And we're always encouraging people that they'd like to join the board here at the museum. You're more than welcome to. We can do conference calling, which will work out fine during meetings. We meet every first Tuesday of every month, so just kind of let you know that. Of course, I wouldn't be up here unless I had a joke to tell for you, right? If you've been here before. So some of these might be clean, some may be dirty, who knows, but I'll get in trouble for them, that's okay. They're pretty simple. So the first one, what kind of maple syrup has a speech impediment? Well, you gotta give me an answer. Someone's gotta have an answer to this. I'll say it again. What kind of maple syrup has a speech impediment? Someone's gotta guess. I see some people in deep thought. All right, I'll give it away. Mrs. Stuttersworth. Hey, I'm just taking, the internet is true, so this came off the internet. So going back, the North, where the Hall of Fame is actually housed upstairs, is the North American Maple Syrup Council. They've done a generous job of donating some money to get that room renovated upstairs. Has anyone not been up there yet? Everybody in here's been up through there? There's an awesome display of a sugar house up there by Mr. Mike Gerard, who's actually a Hall of Fame inductee member himself, who brought it up on Thursday, I believe. And of course, he was supposed to wait till I got out of school to help him, but my father showed up, so he kind of wrangled my father to help him pick it up. But we actually had some community members that came in on Friday morning. They were extremely impressed with it. So much that they went back and told their wives and their children. The children actually came to school the next day on Friday morning, and they were running up to me saying, "Mr. Mosier," I go, "Yeah, because you got something up in the museum that's really interesting." I go, "Yeah, show up and look at it. It's right scale. It's scaled to everything." So hopefully, I'm hoping that Mr. Gerard will go up there later on and station himself, and he can explain everything to you. So I know he's not short-winded, so. So just a few other things in the program. Obviously, you have the two write-ups, Mr. Bruce Elian and Mr. Eric Randall. We have a memorial, and I'm sure I probably missed some syrup producers that have passed away in the past year. I just want to kind of announce a couple of them. Martin L. Elker from West Socon, Dallas Dick, William Van Matt, and Lowell Richard Berkler. Does anyone else know any other maple producers that have passed away in the past year that would like to announce them, just as a memorial? Okay. So moving forward, this is a tough crowd. So I won't be up here unless I ask for donations as part of the museum. As you know, that we work as a nonprofit organization. We rely heavily on donations and grants from different funding sources. In the program, there's a really nice page on there that our executive director, Christine, did up for us, and I printed it off in there. All that money is used for the operations here at the museum. Obviously, we have pancake breakfasts, we do pulled pork dinners, we do ham dinners. During the summertime, we usually do barbecue pork barbecues or marinated pork barbecues, chicken barbecues, and obviously like today helps out a little bit. But we're always looking for additional funding. So if you can, at some point, it doesn't have to be right away, but if you reach in those pockets and pull a little bit of money out and send it our way, that kind of helps with our daily expenses here at the museum and keeps us alive. So I just wanted to mention that also. So just a couple other things. Let's see. I did miss some of my board of directors. Bruce Woodrick, Ken and Bernita's there, who are outside, Gail Britton, Courtney Donnelly. I knew I could get a couple people, so I want to announce them also. Going along with that, because I'm the acting board president here, which by all means, if you want to be a board director and take over my position, you're more than welcome to. I've been trying to get it away, but nobody seems to want it. Our vice presidents, Tim sitting in the back, Nadine Linedecker, who's not present today. She's also our co-vice president. Obviously, Secretary Alan, Jane's here, and of course Christine's our executive director. You guys got any questions for me so far? Need another joke? Okay. What did the cedar tree say to the maple tree? You ready for it?
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah, at least they're clean so far. Don't worry, I'm leaving up to them. So at this point, I think I've exhausted my talk with you folks. I don't think I've missed anything. I got Jane and Christina kind of clue me in. Have I missed anything so far? If not, we'll get our induction ceremony on the way here. So if I could... So I'm going to call Mr. Richard Norman up. Round of applause for him, please. Now, as our fact, as our inductees come up, and obviously we would like to have the vice. Well, they already got their flowers on. Very nice. As the inductees come in, I would like you to kind of walk between the aisles and do the catwalk, and turn around and come back. You think I'm kidding? I can demonstrate if you like.
I'm not going to go all the way. This is very tiring.
Hey, I told you I'm an art teacher. I don't mind making a fool of myself. You know, I was thinking about this last night. Of all the people that are here for the MSI meeting went over to Lavo. Most of them stayed at the Ridgeview Inn, and then of course they went out to dinner. I was thinking when I went home, of course I did some yard work and I was playing around with the kids. I was thinking I probably should go over to Richard and kind of get together with him so we could do a song and dance scenario. But I got so busy, so you're off the hook.
Oh. I'm gonna announce the one for Bob. Just to give you an idea how this all happens is we have a committee that gets together every year and selects the candidates. And I'll just read the names of the committee, and if you've got candidates that you'd like to see be put into the hall, see one of us and we'll consider it. But the committee is Gary Gaudette, Harvard Bentley, myself, Roy Hutchison, Norman Anderson, and Dave Sapesky. And so if you want to see any of us be good. The next thing I'll do is I'll introduce the people that are here, and hopefully I don't forget anybody or missed anybody, I should say. And I'll start with Gary Gaudette, is here. If you'd stand. Harvard Bentley, myself, David Marvin, Earl Parker, was here, there he is, Dave Sapesky, Mike Drod, and Theo Brissett. Yeah. So these are the folks that are here today that have been inducted into the Hall of Fame. Now this is where you get back in the swing of things, right? if you'd come up and introduce your father.
Good morning. So I quite often get asked, how are you doing today? And I always tell people it's a beautiful day in paradise. Oftentimes people say, are you sure? Because they'll be in the middle of a snowstorm in Vermont. I'll say, well, it's not paradise here necessarily, but I'm sure it's beautiful wherever paradise is. But today I think it's in Croatia, New York. So, as I started thinking about my dad, you're gonna have to give me a minute. I did come prepared. The two things that kept coming up as I was trying to write this, and for those of you that have heard me speak in the maple industry all over the place, I never have notes. I never have a piece of paper in front of me. And this was a difficult thing to write. But the two things that I thought of were family and passion. And just to give you an example of family, how important it is here, we have a lot of family here today. My dad's sister Pam and her husband Bob are here from North Carolina. All my dad's children are here. My sister Brandy, all the way from Virginia. My brother Brett and his wife Brandy from Vermont, with their son William. My brother Brian, his wife Gabrielle, with their daughters Adelaide, Fiona, and Penelope, and one to be determined. My wife is here with my two children, Gavin and Xavier. And of course, behind every good man, there's a better woman. I would say in this case, probably a lot better. I know what she has to put up with. And in this August, it'll be 40 years for Mary Jo and Bruce. I also want to give a special thanks to extended family that came. My cousin Allison is here from Tennessee, and my aunt and uncle Don and Jeanette here from Vermont. And then also to his leader family, most importantly, Gary and Joyce Goddett. Gary made things very difficult for me in October. He told me he was nominating my father for the Hall of Fame, and I had to keep it a secret that he done it. So at the banquet in the dark up in Levi, I'm trying to get my camera out to take a picture so I can get the reaction of my father. And my wife's trying to get her camera out and trying not to let him see us get our cameras out. But luckily, I think we made it so it was a full surprise. When I was thinking through this and thinking about the passion that my father has for everything that he does, whether it was chasing us kids, driving all over Vermont and New England for soccer games, cheerleading competitions, baseball games, basketball games, coaching baseball at his high school alma mater, even after his kids were all gone. And then the passion he shows and the competitive spirit that he has when he's playing volleyball at age 62 and probably still can beat me and my brother once in a while. And believe me, we hear about it when he does. And I just remember taking all the managers from Leader Evaporator out for a fun evening, and we went bowling, and my father went down and throws, I don't know if it's his first ball or his second ball of the day, and he throws a strike, and he comes back yelling and screaming and pumping his fist, and 2 or 3 of the people that work with him just look at me and go, is he like this all the time? But that passion in Maple is why we're here today. For 42 years, he's worked at Leader Evaporator Company. He started in manufacturing. So I had to ask him this question today. How does it feel to know that you built antiques?
I saw them downstairs. And I probably don't.
He worked in shipping, He's been vice president of Leader Evaporator for 27 years. But most importantly, he's been the face of Leader Evaporator out in the field with customers as a salesman for the company for many years. And it's during that time that he's helped to teach the art of maple to hundreds of sugar makers all over the country. And I think in going through some of this with him, I think we decided that it's somewhere around 14 states and provinces that he's made maple syrup in various sugar houses around the country and into Canada. I've been lucky enough to work alongside him for the last 17 years at Leader Evaporator. And most recently, things have kind of flip-flopped in that he works for me now. And people ask us all the time, what's that like? And I tell people, we work great together as long as we're not together. And if you don't believe me, ask my brother Brian, who recently started coming back and helping in the family maple operation, because he can vouch for that being very true. But the passion he has for maple is no doubt passed down from my grandfather Clean. I watched as a young kid my grandfather passed down the responsibility of running the evaporator. And that's not a small task in our sugar house. There's an award-winning tradition there that has to be carried on. Gillen Family Maples won Best of Show 41 times. And we've won Best in Class, or second place in class, over 200 times in contests. And that tradition has to be carried forward. But there's another tradition that has to be carried forward, and now I've seen my father take the next step, as he's handed the responsibility of running the evaporator down to me and my brother, so that he can spend his time dedicated to teaching the next generation of Gillen Family Maple. I promise it's not much longer. You know, my grandfather used to famously say, it'll be all better by sugaring time. My cousin Stephanie, at my grandfather's funeral, told the story of getting hit in the nose with a baseball in the middle of July, blood gushing, running into the house, screaming and crying. And of course it was our fault, it was me and her brother's fault, because we hit the ball too hard. And my grandfather just looked at her and said, Stephanie, don't worry, it'll be all better by sugaring time. And you know, although the trees have budded and the steam's done for this year, we are surrounded by family, friends, and people that celebrate maple. It feels an awful lot like sugaring time, and it doesn't get much better than this. So ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to introduce to you my father, Bruce Gillen, 2018 inductee to the Maple Hall of Fame.
I'm not going to use that because I don't need it. I think my wife needs the first thank you, because she was out there when I was gone all the time, raising kids, grandchildren, and all that, while I was out doing what I am very passionate about. And that's teaching the art of making maple syrup to people, going and walking in the sugar bushes, trying to help get the most sap that they possibly can. And if it wasn't for my wife, Mary Jo, you stay. Okay. Everybody knows about Mary Jo. I can't say enough, and thank you very much. I really appreciate it for all those years. And like Brad said, in August it's going to be 40 years that we will have been married. So, thank you. There's many people that have done a lot of things for me over the years. I didn't get the knowledge that I have today by not just on my own. I stole from other people. I went to many places, visited many sugar houses, talked to many people over the years, and took little bits and pieces from every single one. The next person I would like to say thank you to, because I worked for this gentleman for 30 years or more, Gary Gaudette. Gary was president of Leader Evaporator, but when I first started working there, he was in sales. And then when I moved to shipping, he helped me in the shipping and learned the shipping department. And then when they asked me if I would go out on the road, Gary took me under his wing We went walking woods together. At that point in time, I'd never walked the woods, thought about putting tubing in the woods or anything. And Gary took me under his wing and taught me an awful lot about that. Taught me how to treat people with respect. And that's the most thing, treating everybody with respect. Because as Brad also said, we are one big, happy family, the Maple family, all of us here in this room. And I can't say enough about all the people I've met, all the people that I've been associated with that have treated me with that respect, more so than I probably deserved at times. But I really, really appreciate every single one of you. You've been great. Another thing that I have to say is the one person that taught me the most about maple was my dad, William. He made some of the best maple syrup that I've ever tasted. And it's not just because he's my dad, although that's part of it. Okay. But he taught me how to boil. And I can remember when Brad was young, being the oldest one of the kids, came to the woods first. And my dad always did all the boiling. And we gathered the sap, the first tank full of sap, because we're all buckets back then. Forget about all this tubing and everything else we have today. And we went out. We didn't have horses back then, though. That's Richard's dad. So we went out, we gathered the first tank full of sap, and my dad would always boil, and I'd go gather the rest of the sap. And Brad came to help us that year, and he had his little green plastic pail, one that he could hold the sap and carry it by himself. And we got the first tank full of sap all gathered, and I said to my dad, well, you might as well start boiling, and Brad and I'll go gather the sap. And he looked at me, and he says, nope, I'm going to go gather sap with Brad, you boil. And I got to thinking to myself, are you sure? The snow is this deep. Are you sure you want to go out there and gather sap? And he said, yep, I'll go gather sap with Brad. So that was the first time that I boiled. He just left the sugar house, and I boiled. But he had faith in me that I could do the job. The one thing that I didn't realize what he was doing, and I did realize it afterwards as you become a little bit older, you understand that what he was doing was not just making me learn how to boil on my own. He spent precious time with his grandchildren. He taught his grandchildren how to drive tractor. He taught them everything about the woods. He eventually taught them how to boil. I didn't teach Brad how to boil. His grandfather taught him how to boil. Okay? So those are all the things. And every one of my kids had chances to learn how to drive the tractor. Even my daughter is sitting down here. You got your tissues? And so that's part of who he was and where I learned from. And so he taught me how to treat people with respect and taught me a lot about the maple industry. And to this day, there isn't a day goes by that I don't think about something that I learned from him. Okay? So with that, I would like my family, and Don and Jeanette, you're part of my family, and my sister and brother-in-law, would you just please stand? Please. Thank you. I can't say enough how much I appreciate everything you've done for me, how you've been there for me, because without every single one of you, I wouldn't be standing up here today. I have the one that likes maple syrup over here the most. Every time she comes to the sugar house, she comes there with one thing in mind. Have you made any syrup yet so I can have some warm syrup? And that's Fiona. And then her two sisters are right behind her, but she is the first one that wants the syrup. Okay? So with that, I just want to say thank you very much. And now what I'd like everybody to stand up because you're all part of my maple family. So please, everybody stand up. Thank you very much, all of you. Be a part of this and be here. Thank you very much. I'm going all the way.
Eric's look on his face. He's
We throw him down the torture. See you now.
Off the air.
If you get a hat from him, I'm going to stomp on him on the ground.
So on behalf of the American Making Museum, plaque, I'll read what the plaque says here. Bruce Gilliam, Fletcher, Vermont, hopefully that's correct, inducted into the American Making Museum Hall of Fame, May 12th, 2018, for his dedicated service to the North American maple industry. American Making Museum program.
This is the part I've been dreading. She has a weapon now. And she's going to stab me with it.
They told me I can sit anywhere I want to.
You know, somebody said they had jokes earlier, and some of them might not be the cleanest as they went along. My wife just told me to be very careful. This day is a highlight in my life, but it's not the top highlight in my life. There's about 5 of them that happened before this. 4 of them were when each one of my kids were born. The day that they were born were a highlight. But the number 1 highlight in my life was my wedding night.
Mrs. Randall, if you would come forward.
Good morning. I'm very pleased to be here to introduce my husband, Eric, at this event, which recognizes his continuing commitment to the craft and art of making maple syrup, as well as to the improvement of the maple industry as a whole. From the biography, you can see that it's quite extensive and filled with important accomplishments. But probably the best sentence in the biography is the very first one. Eric A. Randall was born and raised on a western New York dairy and cash crops farm and comes from a family with a long history of sugar making in the region. What is not in the biography are the really small details. His mother came from generations of a family who made maple syrup. And it was his grandmother who used to take him to the woods to learn to identify plants and collect plants. Very similar to the story we heard. It is a generational type of thing. June Randall, Eric's mother, frequently described to me and to others the hard work as a small child carrying buckets up and down a very hilly terrain in North Java. Not always with happiness in her heart to remember it, but he was forewarned about all the hard work. Didn't do any good. We can really say that sugaring was in his blood, and also the commitment to education was in his blood based on the encouragement from his mother and father, and also the commitment to others, which is very much like his father and his father's activities in the public limelight. Finally, a large part of the success was due to a lot of the people in this room sharing their opinions, giving him insight, not always maybe what he wanted to hear, but it gave him dialogue, and this is what improves the whole industry as a whole, giving different viewpoints. Some of those people who really influenced his life are only represented in the pictures upstairs, such as 2 people outstanding in our area who are in the Hall of Fame, Art Worley and Roger Sage. So now it's really Eric who spends a lot of time on the phone, and I can repeat that, spends a lot of time on the phone and in person talking about all sorts of maple issues, from the fellow who calls from downtown Buffalo who wants to tap his trees for his kids to see, to people who come on maple weekends who are just curious about what's going on, thinking that the syrup actually comes from the tree, which isn't an unusual thing for them to think. So now it's his turn, and I'm introducing Eric Randall.
you. Congratulations, Bruce. You lose, Richard. Richard counsels Bruce that we had 2 minutes. That's the first one. This is the second one. I thought it was 2 hours. As Albert Einstein, I love this quote, said, "I'm far too busy to be brief." But it is an extreme honor, tremendous honor to be here. It's daunting, to be honest. We had a council meeting upstairs in the Hall of Fame room, which is my very favorite room. When Bruce sanded the paint off from the baseboards that you see in this building a year ago, and I got to looking at it, and as a wood anatomist and a taxonomist and a woodworker, although not as good a woodworker as Mike Gerard is, Mike, I am going to take that model home with me. It's missing, just come to my place. But the woodwork in this building just knocks your socks off. It's a shame it's been covered by a million coats of paint. It's American chestnut. So if you haven't looked at the woodwork upstairs in the Hall of Fame room, go back upstairs. It's a very nearly extinct species. Talking about extinct species, the 89 people that hung on the wall yesterday, they're now 191, I think, with the 2 of us. That's an impressive family, as Bruce talked about. The family of Maple people are unique folks. The folks sitting in this room are different. We're really weird people when you come right down to it. You have to be a little bit off to spend the amount of time that we spend. I'm waiting for it to be better by sugaring. And this year is no exception. This season was something else. But of the 89 people hanging there, I spent some time with the ones that I knew or know, and it's daunting is the word I use. It's a frightening thought that I knew or know over 70 of the 89. And as I said in the biography, I go back a long way in Maple. Our family, we've got recorded records, we have writings of syrup being made on our farm in western New York back to 1848. All but 2 years. We don't have records from when they came from New Hampshire and Vermont, but the records in western New York go back to 1848. I was 4 years old when Fred Winch and Josh Cope came to our farm, and one of the original 12 sweet trees was on our farm in Java. Sadly, it was cut when my uncle died and the woods were sold for timber, and there was only one person left alive who knew where the tree was, and I was not there fast enough for that original sweet tree of the sweet tree fame of both Vermont and New York history, and it was cut. Actually, it was rejected as a saw log, and sadly was spent its demise as firewood. It's a tree that routinely tested over 5. There are buds both at Isle Royal and at Lake Placid, and in a couple of sugar orchards in western New York. So at least the genetics go on. But it's the genetics of sugar people and what we do, and I don't like referring to it as a fraternity, but indeed it is, and I like your term, Bruce, it is a family of people with a common interest. I would be remiss if I did not recognize people who should be standing here. The awards, and probably every single person that hangs in that Hall of Fame can or should say the same thing. It's not us that have done it, it's those who have enabled us, brought us to it. Your grandfather, your father. We all have grandfathers who were in the business of one sort or another. I was terrified when Eleanor agreed to introduce me. Eleanor's never introduced me for anything. And the fear that I had on what she would say or would say was terrifying. I could not have, and like Mary Jo, she didn't tend the evaporator when you were gone. Eleanor didn't, but she allowed me to do that, and allowed me. She has said many times, some of it is with talking with Roger Sage or with Gary Gaudette or with others, how can you spend so much time for so long talking about so little? And that's sugar makers. And we usually stand there, leaning on one another like this and rehashing and regurgitating the same thing over and over and over. So we could not have done what we have done had it not been for her forbearance, her tolerance, and the fact that the supper was always there. It was always brought to the sugar house, and somehow it miraculously happened. And I got supper brought to sugar, and it was good too. I mean, just warm, and fresh, not very shades of green, things like that. But nevertheless, it wouldn't have happened had she not tolerated the many phone calls, the missed meals because somebody was on the phone or whatever. I envy you with your family here. Our family think we may have worked our kids just a little hard. You talked about Virginia and North Carolina, mine are in South Carolina and Iowa. I got a text message before we came in here that they're sad they couldn't be here, but the distances are just too great, and they've gotten more than 1,000 miles from home, so it makes it difficult to gather sap. My daughter Rebecca and her family, my son Jesse and his family, the family that goes back, the genetic family, the familial ones. My sister and brother-in-law, who now blessedly run the vacuum pumps, so I don't have to drive a 60-mile round trip just to make sure a pump is running. The agricultural heritage that we have, in that she talked about it being in our blood. It clearly is, and that courses through every vein sitting in this room. I couldn't be here today if it were not, and I'm going to single some people out, which is a dangerous, dangerous thing to do in a crowd. But the information, the knowledge, the stamina, if you will, that I garnered from probably darn you, Brad. One of my closest friends was Roger Sage. I introduced him here 12 years ago. One of the toughest things I ever had to do in my life was do his funeral service, which was probably one of the highest honors I've ever had. Roger was an incredibly brilliant, decent human being. Gary Gaudette, Mike Gerard, Winton, Jake Kuchar, Harold Tyler, Art Murley. I mean, the list goes on. The list is here, and I'm not going to rehearse it. But 68 of them I knew personally, and I could put each one of them up there and say nice things. Josh Cope. Anybody here knew Josh Cope? Josh Cope is the funny-looking guy, number 5 over from the start, has a beret on, and he's talking into a microphone upstairs. He was a Quaker. Read his biography. Has a degree in forestry from Yale. Some of those old dudes were incredibly interesting characters, and we talk about tough seasons and what you had to deal with. Read what some of them did. He started the 4-H movement in forestry. He wrote the original Cornell bulletins that are used across the world. And he hangs upstairs, and he's probably, well, the Yanceys did a nice job with some of their characters. That green plaid hat, I want that hat as much as I want your model, Mike. These guys were giants, and I could go on and on and on. I have to give credit to a fella who's been in my sugar house probably every time we strike a match and light a fire, and that Chuck Lapp has allowed me to continue to make syrup. If Chuck can't fix it, nobody can. Josh Greenacre, who came here, was a wide-eyed, really weird kid that was in one of my sister's home ec classes. I mean, he's a guy who took home ec. I mean, that's how bad he is. And Jane, my sister, said, you know, I got somebody that's pretty good size. He's on the football team. He plays basketball, and he doesn't know how much work it is to lift buckets. And so he came around, and I said, oh, he's just another kid that probably isn't going to do a real good job or stick with it. He's still sticking with it. Miserable kid went off, got a degree in architecture, he's got a job. It raises hell with sugar in season. And he took a semester off, went to Italy during the spring semester. I mean, Josh, what was the matter with you? And he didn't come back to gather buckets during sugaring season. Jerry Bertoldo, a veterinarian who's a pyromaniac and does nothing but fire the evaporator. I talked about Roger. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Norm Gillette, the botanist that got me started when I was an undergraduate at SUNY. Ron Purcell, my doctoral advisor at Penn State. Lee Marsh, Bruce Johnstone, a name probably not very familiar here, but the former chancellor of the State University of New York, allowed me, his father was a seedsman. He understood trees and plants, and he brought his family to our place, and they would ski out there. He allowed me the opportunity to be the little bit more than weird professor and do this thing with taking students in the field. Randy Heiligman, Mel Calling, Lou Statz. I have a profound respect for a lady who hangs in the hall upstairs, Maria Franca Morselli, who I think is probably the most underappreciated researcher to have graced the maple industry. She was a biochemist by training. She would stand her ground. I'll never forget the meeting at Seven Springs, the first one in Pennsylvania, where she and Lou Statz got into just an incredible shouting match. Neither one of them won, but both of them claimed victory. I'm indebted, I'm honored, I'm pleased, I'm humbled. And I'm bowled over by the fact that the hall has seen fit to induct me. I have to give tremendous credit and honor to those who are presented upstairs. Not only is our industry and this organization, the Hall of Fame, the maple organizations around the world, which is the IMSI and the North American Council, a better place because those folks that are exemplified upstairs walk this way. But society and the world at large is better because of all maple folks. Thank you, and I'm honored. There's only an hour and a half left. I mean, if you play the organ, I will, we'll do it.
Well, you know it's kind of coming before I get up
Just a cousin.
So plaque reads Dr. Eric Randall, Alexander, New York, inducted into the American Maple Museum Hall of Fame May 12, 2018 for his dedicated service to the North American maple industry. American Maple Museum, Provo, New York. Congratulations. we get concluded here, just want to say, it seems like whenever we have this ceremony, there hasn't been too many years that the weather hasn't turned out absolutely fabulous. The forecast is supposed to be a rainy day, and this is what we get, a nice sunny day out. A little bit cooler, but it's a beautiful day out. As a reminder, after we're all done, that if we can get the inductees and past members of the Hall of Fame to be outside by the sign, and we'll take our pictures out there. So there's a couple more things that I want to talk about. I imagine right now would probably be a good time for a joke. So we'll break one out here. So, what did the maple syrup farmer say when he saw a good-looking maple tree?
I'm gonna tap that.
You got it. Give her a prize. What do we got? So if you look at the program, we have something happening here at the museum. Not only the Hall of Fame room upstairs, but we have recently, the board of directors has committed to changing our name. So the two inductees this year, Bruce and Eric, you are the last two to be inducted into the American Maple Museum, as far as the building was called before. As of right now, as we'll start our changeover, it's going to be called the International Maple Museum Center. And I'll give you a little reason why. Because the maple industry doesn't just include North America and Canada, there are those possibilities that because the maple keeps growing, that there's going to be more of an international flavor to this. So we're hoping that in the future that possibly someone from Japan or China or Australia or some other country will be also part of this museum. So that's basically our main reason for changing our name. We just didn't think that the American Maple Museum quite reached out where we wanted to go. So on that note, I'm going to go back to some other things. As far as our changeover, I know there's another piece of paper that was with programs, which basically is our cost budget for our changeover. And I'd like to, is Ray here? Ray? I'm going to bring Ray up, because he's going to kind of kick this whole new funding opportunity for us.
I can do the walk. All right, thank you. I'll be quick. As most of you know, I'm the president of the IMSI. We also put a motion yesterday for $500 to the museum, and IMSI has also committed some money to help in signage, name changes, things like that to help the museum. Our provincial association in Ontario, where I'm from, thought it was a hugely worthy cause, and moved to donate $250 to the museum. I have a check here I'd like to give Don from Ontario. All right, perfect.
So
No, I could do that, Joe.
not to be a beggar, Randy, but I would like to say again, any opportunities, when you go back home, if you're affiliated with a maple syrup organization, ask them, bring it up to your meetings, see if they'd be willing to request or donate some money to the museum to cover this cost. Our biggest thing right now, I actually have a student that is in the graphics program and our BOCES program that's starting to give me some designs for logos. So our intentions are to get our logo all set, and we'll have a big reveal of the logo, and we start our major changeover. But going along with that, I kind of like the way that Bruce put everything, that this is a family. So I do encourage, and I don't have anything wrong with this, if people do have some ideas for a new logo design for the International Maple Museum Center, feel free to email Christine here at the museum. We'll take them into consideration. Like I said, we have a board member strong of 22 to 24 people. We'll look them over, and we're going to kind of make sure we get this the way we want it. We want that logo to really represent who we want to be and who we want to be in the future. So, on that note, I want to thank everybody for coming today. And like I said, we'll meet outside for pictures. At 11:30, we have a barbecue that's going to be served in here. I believe it's a barbecue chicken sandwich with Salt potatoes, the biggest joke is my father never put salt on potatoes, so who knows what you're gonna get on that one. I think it's green beans or baked beans? Green beans. And we got desserts and everything else. And of course, in Krogan itself, this is the Krogan spring fling going on. Spring break. I was on spring break last week. So there's all kinds of things going on in Krogan. I understand a lot of people from a lot longer distance where I gotta travel, but you're more welcome, and please encourage you to walk around Krogan and see what's going on. So once again, I want to thank everybody for coming today, and a special thanks to Bruce and Eric for your dedicated years of service to the organization.